Hi everyone, Chicken here. In the last lesson, we went through the principles of perspective and learned how to use the drawing guides in Procreate to compose a scene. In this lesson, we will learn how to render plants and bushes to paint organic backgrounds. I will also show you another quick hack that I use to create really quick plants in the foreground. So plants are a really great way to frame and also bring your character illustration to life. When we are drawing plants, it's always good to have references because understanding and replicating the organic way petals and leaves fold is crucial in drawing realistic and dynamic plants. And the best part is that it's really easy to get plant references in our daily lives. If you're out on a walk, you can just take a few photos of any plants you see along the way. If we look at this photo of a bush I took here, we can see how the leaves fold. Because the leaves are all kind of curved, the shape won't be perfectly flat. We will have overlaps, which can make really interesting and different shapes. I've just outlined them here and you can see how they all differ. Although overall the shape of the leaves are the same, because of the natural way they fold and the angle at which we view them, they all are slightly different. Now, with the shapes of the individual leaves in mind, let's try to draw a bush. First, I'll go through the colors present in green plants. As we travel from shadow to dark, we will obviously go brighter, but we will also be increasing the saturation and moving from cool colors to warm. So our first color here can be a green with more blue tint. Then slowly, as we transition to the light part, we will have more yellow tint present in the green. And now we have our general color palette for the bush. When drawing bushes, the key is having the right brushes. Here, I'm using Mark Brunet's bush brush to block in the shapes of the bush. It's part of his free brush pack, which I'll link into the class notes. But you can find many other bush block-in brushes like this on the internet. Because having irregularities of leaves is important when painting bushes, drawing the shape out manually is not the best. So here we've just used the darkest color to block in the base shape of the bush. Next, I'll start layering on the details. I'll create a new layer and set it to clipping mask. Then I'll use our second color here and start patching on the highlights. We can imagine that our light source is coming in here from the right, so majority of the highlights will be there. But it's great to add some patchiness to the middle as well, just to show that the bush is not perfectly round and we might have some branches sticking out. Now with our second layer on, I'm going to alpha lock this layer and use an airbrush to airbrush the darker color onto the bottom, just to create some dimension and show its 3D shape. And now I'll move on to the next color with another new layer. As we get to the brighter colors, we will patch them on a little more sparingly, but still following where our highlights are mainly condensed at. And we'll do the same thing of alpha locking it and airbrushing on the previous color. And now our last highlight color. And with all 4 layers on, it looks like a pretty nice bush already. We can stop here, but I like to detail it a little more. I'm just gonna bring up our reference from before so that we can take a look at the shape of the leaves and try to copy that. Using my hard render brush, I will use the reference as a guide and draw in some individual leaves. To blend it in better, I will make sure that my leaves are the same color as the part of the bush they are sticking out from. So if they are sticking out from the top here, I will get that same light color of the bush. And similarly, if they are sticking out of this darker part here, I will get that darker color and paint on the leaves. And we're gonna do it on the other side of the bush as well. Now let's work on detailing the inside of the bush. Like the leaves sticking out from the silhouette, I will make sure that the color of my leaves is the same color as the part of the bush it is sticking out from. So I color pick that color and use it to extend the leaf out of that portion. The reference is very useful in this step because it can show us the shapes that the leaves will make when they are in that orientation. Now I'm just gonna add some very slight highlights to the dark area. I do this quite sparingly and with not much of a brighter color, just slightly brighter so that it doesn't look too stark. And now I'm gonna go in with a brighter but less saturated color and just highlight a very small amount of leaves. This makes the lighting really pop and adds that extra dimension and layer. Now using a darker color, I will start to add that fold of the leaves. Again, I'll reference our picture that we have and see what kind of shapes that the overlap creates. I find that adding this overlap really adds to that three-dimensional feel of the bush and makes the individual leaves read a lot better. Now I'll go in with the final touch-ups. I will add some dark areas into the bright portions to show the depth of the individual branches. And finally, for a really optional step, I will add a secondary color to our darker shadows. I find that blue works really well in green plants because it is also an analogous color. And that's a simple bush done. Now that we are done with a simple bush, I would like to show you a quick little hack for plants that are really up close or in the foreground. Usually, if I'm looking for a simple and quick way to finish off my character portraits, I'll frame it with some plants, usually flowers but sometimes leaves. Here I have a photo of some red leaves because I think it fits the vibe of the painting. Then I'll go into the selection tool on auto select and I'll select the areas outside the plant. We can select the plant itself too, but usually I find it easier and more effective to select the areas outside the plant and erase them. If the selection is too sensitive or not sensitive enough, you can just press and slide to the left or the right. This will adjust the sensitivity of the selector. So now I'm just gonna keep on tapping the areas outside of the plant. If our plant gets selected accidentally like this, I'll just undo it and go again. So now I think we've got a pretty clean selection. I'm gonna drag 3 fingers down and cut and paste. Now we can delete the background off of the plant and we're left with just this. We still have little bits left from where our selection tool didn't manage to select. So I'm just gonna go in with the erase tool and manually erase them. But it doesn't need to be that clean because we'll be blurring it later. Now I'll just transform and position it. And I can adjust the colors using the hue, saturation and brightness and the color balance. I'll usually shift the tones more towards what we have on the canvas already. So in this case, I want to bring it to a more orange hue. And I'll do that by increasing the yellow. I'll also adjust the gamma curves a little bit. Now that our color is what we want, I'm gonna duplicate it and add a second one at the right side of the canvas, just so it frames her a little better. Now I'll just apply a Gaussian blur to it. And we have some really quick foreground plants done. For the mission, render a simple bush with me, like what we did at the start of the lesson. And then try out the zoomed in plant trick. In this lesson, we learned how to add and render simple plants. In the next chapter, we will be finishing up the class by going through some tricks I used to finalize our illustrations, starting with the first lesson on final adjustments. See you there!